This is going to be a look at mandolin for guitar players. So if you already know how to play the guitar, what can you take from your knowledge of the guitar and apply to the mandolin as a new instrument? This is my mandolin. It's a seagull. I really love it. It's made in Canada, in Quebec, but it's a non-typical style. It's not an A style, it's not an F style, it's kind of their own thing. I've also got an inexpensive Chinese-made A style that is it's all right, but it literally and figuratively collects dust because I pretty much always play my seagull. So, getting ourselves oriented on the mandolin, let's think about the tuning of the strings first. So a guitar is tuned mostly to fourths. So each string is tuned to the note at the 5th fret of the previous string until you get to the G going to the B. That's tuned to a major third, and then back to the 4th for the last string. But a mandolin is tuned just like a violin, where each string is a 5th above the previous. So you go to the 7th fret for tuning your mandolin. So that's 5ths. But because 4ths and 5ths complement each other, your guitar strings going up are the same as your mandolin strings going down. So we'll see how that plays out here. So here's a familiar picture of guitar strings going from your lowest E, the thick string, to your highest E, the thin string. So as we apply this to the mandolin, what we're going to do is concentrate on the lowest 4 strings and ignore the 2 high strings. So your E, A, D, and G strings. So if we take those and flip them over to get a sort of a mirror image of them, there's your mandolin strings. So the low E string on your guitar is corresponds to the high E strings on your mandolin, and your A string corresponds to the next highest strings on your mandolin, the E, A, and then the D corresponds to the D, and the G corresponds to the G. So let's think about the G chord on the guitar. So for the G, you've got your fret there, and then here, and potentially you leave the B string open or you fret it there. But either way, we don't really care right now. We're just thinking about those 4 lowest, what happens on those 4 lowest strings. And so if you take, so let's just start over, ignore the 2 high strings. So if you flip that from guitar land up into mandolin land, there and there is where you're fretting. So that gives you a G. And let's look next at D. So D chord, there. So now it's a bit interesting because often you're going to avoid hitting the A string, but you can hit the A string open. On the E string, if you're playing a D over F sharp, you're going to fret there. If you don't fret there, you're going to want to leave you mute the E string or just avoid playing it, but you can play the F sharp on your E string. So so the relevant notes there are there and there to flip them from the guitar into the mandolin. So that's your D chord. And going next to C, there and there, and we won't bother showing where the where we fret on the high strings. We'll just take those two and invert them from guitar to mandolin, and there's C chord. And so with a C, on the guitar, you can leave the E string open, or you can just mute it or not hit it, but you can also, if you want a G in the bass, that can be a guitar C chord. So likewise, you can do that on the mandolin. So the difference being and A is a little interesting. So A chord there and there. So there's our A chord on the mandolin, but the thing about that one is there's no third in there. So this is like a power chord. So not a great chord just like that on the mandolin. But we'll get further into making a better A later. And E. So flipping that from guitar to mandolin. It's not a great shape. If I'm going to play an E, I'll often play a different bar chord because it's okay, but there's the principle. That's how you would translate your E to mandolin, and E minor, it's just like that. So that's a good start, but we can do much better than that. So we can think about our mandolin fretboard as an inversion of the guitar fretboard, and without consulting a chord chart, I think we can very easily figure out how to play a G. But say you wanted to play a G minor 7th. If you think about your guitar, you're going to switch to a bar chord probably, and that doesn't translate well. So but it turns out that a G minor 7th is very easy and natural on the mandolin. But how are we going to get there? How are we going to figure that out? So if our chord charts, instead of having just black dots on them, if we instead use music theory and chord composition knowledge and color in the dots according to what each note is doing in the chord, then we can pretty easily understand what the G chord is and how to turn it into a minor and how to turn it into a minor 7th. So that's what we'll look at in the next video.